Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this Harmony and Health long COVID event. It's good to see you all, some familiar faces, and people who've not been before. You're very welcome. My name's Julia Outlaw. I'm a member of the Harmony and Health team. And Harmony and Health, for those who don't know, it's a multidisciplinary team when we look at health in its broadest sense. So rather than focusing on symptoms of disease, more about bringing the whole system back into balance. And that's the approach that we're taking in our help to long COVID sufferers, including myself. And this is the third of set of workshops that we're running after the introductory one. And the focus for today is on nourishing. And we're going to be looking at breath again and natural breathing, and also at routines and diet that helps with inflammation, and also at some herbs. So a nice lineup again. I'll introduce the presenters for those of you that don't know them. First, John Hunter, who is, he's waving, he is a teacher and he's an expert in mind-body disciplines. He's been working all over the world with the Alexander technique for over 40 years. And he spoke to us last week about breathing and natural breathing and how it's not about sucking in or doing anything with your stomach. And we looked at noticing where our ribs were and any movement there. And obviously so relevant for all of us. And so today he's going to carry on with looking at natural breathing. And then Eleni, Dr. Eleni Tsiampanu, who's also a member of the team and is a palliative care consultant and also an Ayurvedic doctor. And Eleni has been helping us with nutrition and diet, and especially looking at the different doshas and how we can eat to help us according to how we're feeling or our type. And today we're looking at Pitta, I think the fiery one, and looking at inflammation and the digestive fire and how we can help ourselves. She's also going to talk about routine as being a very important aspect of healing. I know a lot of integrative doctors agree with that. And I can certainly say having some kind of routine, I think for everyone really in this last year, knowing something that you're going to do in the day helps our systems, our bodies and our emotions to be a bit more balanced. So Elaine is going to talk about that. And then finally, a new speaker is here, Dimitra Makarona. Welcome. Dimitra is a pharmacist. She's qualified in both Greece and in the UK. She's specialising in natural medicinal products, herbal medicine. And she very much agrees with the overall approach of not just addressing symptoms with the herbs, but about the whole system. She collaborates with lots of other health professionals across London. Welcome, Dimitra. Good. So today will last for an hour as usual, and then you're more than welcome to stay for a few minutes if you like for chats in small groups and to ask the presenters any questions or share anything. And that would be great if you felt you could stay, but no obligation. And what else to say? If I forget at the end, the next session is on the 20th of May about healing, and that's going to be a really interesting session as well. So do remember to put that in your diary. And there is a Facebook group, Harmony and Health for long COVID support. If you feel like joining that, there's some extra resources on there. Okay. Feel free to put any questions in the chat as we go along. Otherwise, I will hand over to John. Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you, Julia, and hello, everybody. So continuing with our investigation of natural breathing, I don't know how many of you were here at the last one. The video of that is available, so if you haven't seen the video and you want to see it, just let us know and we'll give you access to that. But I'll recap a little bit. So this video made by American colleague of mine, Jessica Wolf, shows first of all the rib cage as it moves during respiration. And you can see it's a lot of movement there. So it widens as the air comes in, narrows as the air goes out, and then I'll let it run on and we'll see the diaphragm. So there's the diaphragm, and you can see what a big organ it is, splitting the torso in half and moving in coordination with the ribs, which is important for what we're going to discuss later. Because a lot of difficulties to do with breathing come from a rigidity in the rib cage. And just watch that again to see how the ribs and the diaphragm move together. So the point about this movement of the diaphragm is that it's not voluntary, that the stimulus to the diaphragm to contract comes from the amount of carbon dioxide in the blood. When carbon dioxide levels get to a certain height, then that triggers a response. The brain sends a message to the diaphragm telling it to contract. We have other ways of getting air in, of course. If I want to speak, I need air. I can draw air in. But that doesn't mean that it's a diaphragmatic breath. I can push my abdomen out to pull the diaphragm down, which is abdominal breathing. I can use my ribs to open the thorax and draw air in, but that's not diaphragmatic breathing either. And any re-education work with breathing needs to, first of all, try to encourage the diaphragm to work as it's meant to do. And because we can't do that through voluntary action, it means really allowing things to happen. So the basic principles: the diaphragm is not a voluntary muscle. It's not exactly muscle tissue, but we can think of it as like a muscle, but it's not a voluntary muscle. The volume and pressure are inversely proportional. The way air is drawn into the lungs is very similar to the action of a pair of bellows. You open the bag and that draws air in. It's not the air coming in that opens the bag. But a lot of people breathe as though that were how it works. They try to suck air in, excuse me, in order to inflate themselves. But that's the opposite of what should be happening. Things that go wrong, well, typically holding the breath, not letting the breath out fully. And in order to let the breath out fully, we need to release the rib cage. As you saw on that diagram, if I represent one side of the rib cage with my hand and the diaphragm with the other hand, as the air is being expelled, the diaphragm's coming back up inside the rib cage. The ribs need to close around it. In effect, to let go around the diaphragm. If it's rigid, the diaphragm can't get back up inside the rib cage to fully expel the air. And that tends to leave stale air in the lungs, which could be very susceptible to infection. So, other things that go wrong, sucking air in. This is very common. Abdominal breathing is something that people often cultivate, but that's another bad habit. So what can one try? Well, there can be other issues with respiration apart from bad habits. Of course, there can be inflammation, which seems to be the case with long COVID, or blockages of some sort. So you will need to use your own judgment about what it's okay for you to try now. But most breathing exercises are, in my opinion, only a way of practicing habits. And what is really needed is to allow the body's innate mechanisms to function with as little interference as possible. When air comes into the lower part of the lungs, I mean, the lungs they're more or less pyramid shaped. When air comes into the bottom part of the pyramid, which is the biggest part, there isn't a feeling of pressure or of being full. But many people have such a strong association between the feeling of being full and having air that if they don't have that sensation, then they think they don't have any air. So if you're used to breathing up here, like that, and many people do, after you take a breath, you feel pressure here, but you've only filled this top little portion of the pyramid. So you feel pressure up here, you feel full, but this big area down below is still empty. So in re-educating respiration, one has to get used to some different sensations. That can take a little while. So the primary focus of respiratory re-education is the exhalation. We have a saying in the Alexander technique, if you remember to breathe out, nature will remember to breathe in. And unless the ribcage relaxes and allows the diaphragm to ascend, all the air is not exhaled. If the exhalation is more complete, the diaphragm and the ribcage, they're very responsive to the next stimulus from the brain, for the diaphragm to contract and descend and the ribs to make space for that. If we haven't exhaled fully, the ribs are tense, the diaphragm is not fully relaxed and not so responsive to the next signal from the brain. So then, how to encourage a more free exhalation, how to encourage the rib cage to release. In our work, we use our hands for that. It's hands-on work. We show people how to release the rib cage. We help them to release it. But there are some things that people can do to help themselves. And we'll have a look at some of those. We use a procedure which we call the whispered R. This is a slow, controlled exhalation, which seems to help the system to be in a good state to receive the next stimulus to take breath in. We use a slow, controlled exhalation, making the sound R with a whisper. Or why a whisper? Because it's creating some resistance to the air as it goes out, but it's not generating enough force in the vocal folds to create a voiced sound. So it's generating less tension. And why the R sound? Well, for the same reason that the doctor asks you to say R if he wants to look at your tonsils. It's opening the throat. So I'll demonstrate in a moment. A slow, controlled exhalation to the sound of a whispered R, followed by an inhalation through the nose. Now, why through the nose? Because it warms the air, it moistens the air, and it filters the air. But the nasal passage is rather like a soft plastic tube. And if you try to suck air through a soft plastic tube, it will stick together. So again, there must be no sucking of air in, which is why people who do suck air in almost invariably breathe through the mouth, because it's difficult to suck air in through the nose. You'll see if I show you. My nostrils are sucked together, blocking the air passages. It's interesting that you see many athletes now wearing a piece of tape across the nose here. And they do that because that tape opens the nasal passages. You can try it if you just take your fingers and slightly pull apart here and breathe through your nose. You'll feel that the air moves much more freely. So that's why athletes wear that patch, that piece of tape there. Although, of course, nature has provided a mechanism for that, and it's natural, it should be natural, for the nostrils to flare slightly during the inhalation. As you see there. But as soon as you try to suck the air in, the nostrils close. So, allowing the breath to come in through the nose without sucking it in, then it will naturally tend to come into the lower part of the lungs, and then letting it out with a slow, controlled, whispered R sound. So you may notice that my exhalation is getting longer, because each time more air is coming in, just because through trying that procedure, I'm freeing up my respiratory mechanisms. My rib cage is getting freer, and my diaphragm is making a bigger excursion. So more air is coming in. I'm not sucking any air in, and I'm not generating any pressure in my upper chest. upper chest. So it's something that you can try. It does, as I say, take a bit of getting used to, because if you have the habit of breathing up here, then a part of your mind will tell you you don't have air, even though air is moving, you can hear air is moving in and out, but the sensation will be so different. But a part of your mind will tell you you don't have air, and you'll be desperate to go and puff yourself up here to feel that familiar sensation. Well, it's okay if you really need to do that, then do it, but then come back to that gentle, slow, controlled exhalation and an in-breath through the nostrils without sucking the air in. You can also use your hands. I'll just move back a bit. Use your hands to monitor what's going on as you're breathing. Are you getting more movement in the chest or in the abdomen? As we talked about last time, to find the sides of your ribs and monitor whether there's any movement there. Something I think is helpful to do is to use an image, which is that you can imagine just underneath your rib cage, so just below your ribs here, you have a sphere. And during the inhalation, without any forcing or trying, you're allowing that sphere to expand in all directions. So not only into your abdomen, but also into your back and into your sides, getting that sense of a three-dimensional expansion. Important thing is there should be no forcing, no effort, because that just activates the wrong muscles, the wrong mechanisms. It's about attention, awareness, and allowing. So that's all we have time for today. And next time, my colleague Sarah Karushi is going to explore these principles in making sound and making gentle sounds, humming sounds, and feeling the resonance and the vibration in your thorax can be very helpful. Okay, so I'll pass back to you, Julia.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. It's such a deep subject, isn't it? Breathing, and I know there's so much advice out there. I know for me, just a couple of those hours does change something, and it's trying to remember to do it when you're in there. I know we all feel this pressure on and off, and trying to remember to breathe out then, and not forcing or thinking for trying to do it for a certain count or anything like that, like exercising, but just gentle. So you will get a recording of this if you'd like to watch that again or try those R's again. Okay, Eleni, can we talk about routine?
So to continue with the words that John used, it is important to have some self-awareness and attention. I'm going to talk about routines, but each one of us is different. So routines can be damaging, certain routines can be damaging for one person. So we need, first of all, to understand about ourselves. But in any case, the body, the human body, loves routine. It's like in nature, everything has a rhythm. So the body likes to follow a rhythm as well and adapt to the rhythms of nature, which have to do with the rhythm of day and night, the rhythm of seasons, and the rhythm of the moon. These three rhythms affect us, and we adapt to them all the time. So there's an internal clock within us which helps us to wake us up and call us to get us back to sleep. So having a certain routine of waking up and going to sleep does make a difference to the body. I know lots of people with long COVID have problems with sleep. And this is something that we are going to touch on another workshop in more detail. But we need to learn to listen to our inner voice, which calls us to wake up or to rest. In general terms, the body likes to wake up around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. There is this power which we talked about the previous workshop called Vata. It's the principle of movement which wakes us up. So around that time, our mind starts getting more active, and we become colder, which we know the Vata principle is quite cold, and we become lighter and we want to move. We start to wriggle in the bed. We could choose to get up at that time. If you're strong and healthy, it's actually a very good thing to do. As you remember, Vata is air and ether combined, and it's the elements that are quite light that makes us more light ourselves. So at that time, we are able to connect with something that is more subtle energy that is around us, and subtle energy that is in us as well. This is why in many spiritual traditions and in monasteries, the monks and the nuns wake up early and do their prayers or the meditations early in the morning. So if you're able to get up and sit in silence and have some sense of yourself, that is a good time to do it. There's a saying that there's a magic in the air in the early part of the day. So then I get up, and what I could do is touch the floor and have a sense that say thank you to the earth. I'm waking up and I'm starting my day. And my 5 senses wake up. So my hearing. And I try to connect my senses with things that are beautiful, because that helps with my healing. So I try to listen to something beautiful, or even just my breath in the silence that I'm sitting. There are many sounds in the morning. So I listen to the sounds of the birds, I listen to the wind, or if I have a fire, to a log burner, and perhaps I listen to some music. Then there's the sense of touch. Perhaps I touch something beautiful like a flower. It helps to wake up my senses. Or if I have someone near me, I hug them. I look at something beautiful. You choose what is beautiful for you. And that helps to wake up the sense of sight. I could smell something, go around the garden and smell at the flowers or light an incense. And then there's the sense of our mouth. I speak a positive word, or I taste something smell, or I sing a beautiful tune. This kind of ritual at the beginning of the day brings alive all the five senses and helps to start my day in a positive way. In watching the sunrise, if I'm able to see the sun, there's something quite beneficial at the early morning sun rays. And this is a ritual that we can adopt whenever we are able to. The same way, watching the sunset is also very beneficial at the end of the day. Then I get up, I wash my face with cold water if I can. And having this very cold washes with the whole body is not actually very beneficial unless you are in a very hot weather. So cold showers are not indicated during the cold months, and especially if there is an imbalance of vata, which makes you even colder. So, but washing the face with cold water and the eyes is quite good to wake up the body and to clean. And then brushing with a towel your face, and then cleaning your teeth, of course. And there's a whole lot of things we could use to clean our teeth, which are more natural, and there are herbs that can help, but try to use a toothpaste that is more natural ingredients. And the same with washing your face. Really, we don't need a soap, just water is enough. Then after I do that, another routine that indicates how the body is and helps the body is our bowel habits. Ideally, one should have a bowel movement early in the day, and you should really have a look at the poo before you flush the toilet, because what comes out is will give you an indication of your balance or imbalance. In a way, we're all imbalanced. So the kind of poo that is like a sausage and has a lighter color is probably the healthiest we can produce. One that comes out easily and just doesn't create a lot of oil in the toilet bowl and doesn't need much to be cleaned. So that's an indication of how good your digestion is and your health. I know there are many people who have difficulties with the bowel movements, and especially people who have a vata imbalance, and later as we grow older, where the vata elements are stronger in us, it's quite a natural progression that our bowel movements change, which means that our habits, the way we eat, needs to change. So we all change all the time. So adapting our routines to our age and our state of health is important. Hippocrates used to say that the only way I could help someone be healthy is if I would live with them and watch them, how they get up, how they dress themselves, how they eat, what exercises they do, how they go to sleep. So the watcher can be ourselves, because we don't want to have a doctor with us, staying with us. We need to be the watchers, the ones who pay attention and are aware of what's going on. And as we get more educated, we understand when there is a problem. So ways to understand the problem is by watching how we talk, how we breathe, what our thoughts are, how is our appetite. If it goes very low, does it go very high? Then I need to change the routines of how I eat. But ideally, I should have the routine of having my main meal when the sun is at its highest, so in the middle of the day, around 2 o'clock, which is the way the Mediterraneans do it. However, we live in the modern world and many of us have to go to work, and we need to adapt our eating habits with our lifestyle. So if we can't eat in the middle of the day, it's good to eat as early as possible. Having a habit of eating nearly 5, 6 o'clock can have a huge good influence on the body, because that's when the later you leave it, the less digestive fire we have in the body, the less ability to digest things, not only food, but also the things we see and our thoughts and the things we read. So eating your main meal as early as possible will help. And also having the exercise as early as possible. If you want to do your exercise early in the morning after you get up and go out walking in nature, that's probably the best time where you will get all the elements that can be of good influence. So I get up in the morning when the world is a bit quieter, the sun is starting to come up, and I go out in nature if possible, and I walk slowly and breathe.
Just aware of the time. You're going to talk about the Pitta type as part of this, or?
Yes. So I am going to do that. So when I go out, I need to pay attention to the elements. If it's windy, I need to protect myself, put a hat on. If it's very hot, I need to get rid of some of the clothes I wear. So paying attention to how I am and how the environment around me is helps us. So the fire, when it's hot in the summer, that's when there's a lot of fire. When it's hot in the middle of the day, that's when the sun is up and I need to digest my food better. So we talked about Vata and Kapha in the previous workshops. Today I'm going to talk about the principle of Pitta. Pitta is the principle of transformation. We really need it. We really need the elements of fire and water, but Pitta is mainly fire. You need to transform things around you. How does it work? Take a potato, for example. If you take a raw potato, it's not helpful to us. But if you boil it in water, you need the fire. The potato is transformed and the body recognizes it and can use the nutrients to help build our body. So that's what Pitta does. Pitta helps to transform things in the body. And It is penetrating as fire is penetrating and can go into deep tissues in the body. So what are the qualities of Pitta? It's hot, it's light, it's intense, it's penetrating, it's sharp, and it's oily. Because it's oily, it helps our skin. So the fire, the Pitta element in our body helps to transform on our skin. When the sun comes on our skin, vitamin D is created. So we need it. People with freckles and red skin have usually more fire in them. Then Pitta is also sharp. So that makes people quick thinkers. They're quick to talk and quick to act. They have sharp memory. They have sharp understanding. They are the leaders that make decisions. We have the Vata people who create lots of ideas. They are the creative types. But then the Pitta people are the ones that put them into action. So Pitta can be quite good fighters and protectors, but they can also be quite angry and irritable and envious and aggressive and antagonistic. That's when Pitta is imbalanced. Like fire, you know how fire spreads. People who have too much Pitta inside them, they want to spread the name and become famous. So in the middle of our life, when we have more fire between 20 and 40 or 50, that's when people have the increased drive to do things and to achieve things. They have more fire, or they have the possibilities, more possibilities than someone in later life. But then in later life, you don't really want to do things, achieve many things as much. So fire helps us to see things. We need the light in order to transform what we see, what is on a piece of paper, and transform the information and take it into our brain. Pitta is located in the stomach, and that's where all the enzymes are important in order to transform the food that we eat. And the food is only useful when we can transform it. Nourishing food is the one that is properly digested. Then Pitta is quite important for the liver as well. And that's where a lot of cleansing happens. And that's when a lot of illnesses in modern days, because people, due to impaired digestive fire, impaired Pitta, they accumulate fat around the liver and have all these conditions of fatty liver, which is a modern epidemic due to wrong diet and lifestyle. So I think we need to ask ourselves how good is our digestion and how we transform things inside us. If we think that Pitta is not so good inside us, the key to balance it is moderation. So for people who have too much fire, they need to remember that everything needs to be in good measure, not to work too hard. And because Pitta is too hot, they need to be cool, in all with the different meanings of the word cool. They need to pay more attention to leisure activities, and they are helped by being exposed to natural beauty. And when they avoid stimulants like alcohol, coffee, tea, too much television, too much reading, that helps them to have more of a balance.
Okay, Eleni, I think we'll have to move on to give Dimitra some time on herbs. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know that you've got some resources for people as well, and Pitta and the different recommendations, helping our digestive fire. Thank you, Eleni. Dimitra.
Hello. So I'm going to talk about a few plants that have therapeutic properties and can be used so as to achieve a feeling of calmness. There are many ways we can use plants and their parts, but today I'm going to talk about infusions. By infusions, I mean making a tea, basically. We just soak the parts of the plant we need in hot water. We let it stand for 10 minutes and then we strain it. I'll add some color to this and I'll show you the plants that I'll be talking about. Okay, so the first thing on the list is lavender. Lavender is very popular in the UK, and in ancient Greece and Rome it was used as an antiseptic. Many of us know it as an essential oil that's used in aromatherapy. However, it can be also taken by mouth as a tea. It's used for restlessness, for symptoms of anxiety and insomnia. Many people find the flavor quite strong, so it's, in my opinion, it's better to be used in blends with other herbs. The next one is lemon balm. It's a very popular culinary ingredient. However, it makes a very nice cup of tea as well. Same as lavender, they both belong to the mint family. It has quite a minty flavor and also lemony. It works in the same way as medicines used for stress and anxiety. It just binds to the same receptors in our body. Another one is linden. Linden trees are found widely in the UK, and the part we need for our tea is the flowers. It's one of my favorites because it has a very sweet honey flavor. Chamomile is another one, and there are two types. We use the term chamomile, but many people don't know that there is actually two of those. There is Roman chamomile and German chamomile. The one that we find mainly in the market is the German chamomile, and it has a stronger sedative action. The amazing thing about chamomile is that its safety profile, it's not known to interact with our medicines. There's no contraindications about it. Whilst other plants like lemon balm, I forgot to mention it earlier, they shouldn't be used by people with thyroid disorders because it tends to raise thyroid levels. For chamomile, we need the flowers. Lemon verbena is another one that's used for nighttime tea. It helps with insomnia and tackles stress. However, it's not recommended for people with low blood pressure. And it should be avoided by people with kidney dysfunction because it has a diuretic action. Sage. Sage can be used for mental clarity. It boosts the memory and it promotes calmness. The part we need are the leaves, and it has a really distinct smell and flavor. That's why it's also used in cooking. The last one is a plant that comes from Ayurveda, the traditional Indian medicine system. It's Haswaganda. Ashwagandha is an adaptogen, which means that it improves our body's response to stress. Unfortunately, we cannot cultivate it in the UK. We do find it sometimes, but research shows that the plants that are being cultivated around the country do not contain a great amount of beneficial substances. So the only way we can use it is by buying the powdered roots from health food stores. Okay. All these plants can be bought from, or these teas actually can be bought by health food stores, or you could also buy your own plants from garden centers. You can find all the ones I mentioned in the garden centers in this time of year. Actually, I've got my own lemon verbena here. It looks a bit sad, but it's been through a lot. And it's enough to give me a couple cups of tea per week. Do I have time to go over a couple of recipes?
Sure.
Okay. My favorite one is a nighttime tea. So you boil 500 ml of water. Don't stress about making notes. We're going to give a handout in the end of the workshop. So you bring 500 ml of water to boil. You add a spoonful of chamomile tea, of lemon verbena, and linden tea. You let it simmer for 10 minutes and then you strain it and have it. And another option is to mix sage and lemon balm. If you prefer a more earthy flavor, you can add a pinch of nutmeg, or if you like a more refreshing taste, you can add a few drops of lemon and, of course, some honey. Yeah, the list of calming plants is really long. I just picked some of the most common ones, the ones that are easier to find in the UK, and also some of my favorites. And also, if you have a look in literature or in the internet, you'll see that many of these plants don't only have calming properties, and they're not used for insomnia and stress. They're also being used for many other purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitra. So interesting with these herbs and teas. So both those recipes are good for calming, did you say?
Yes, they're both good for calming. Actually, I had a cup of sage and lemon balm myself before the workshop. And yeah, I feel quite chilled right now.
Lovely. So you can mix up your teas and mix up your oils from Anne's recipes a few weeks ago. And thank you, Dimitra. Okay, so we're coming near to the end of the hour. A lot of information there. I know it's slightly less practical, perhaps, than usual. We didn't do some moving today, but hopefully something that stood out for you, whether it's trying one of those exhalations or moving your main meal to the middle of the day for your digestion. But again, you can catch up on the recording. Thank you to our presenters. And just to say that the next workshop will be on the 20th of May, whereas John said, Sarah Carusi is going to talk to us about humming and how that can be really healing, both for the breath, but also for your whole system. I'm going to talk about sacred geometry in relation to nature. As I talked about in the introductory session, the healing power of nature and how understanding some of the patterns or noticing them more can be very healing. And also Anne is coming back and is going to talk to us about feet and finding your feet and different ways that we can help ourselves, both with massage and also oils and things with our feet. So look forward to that one.